So we will go ahead and get started. Today's topic is applying to Indiana University graduate programs. This is session 2 of the Grad Chats live webinar series. In thinking about why graduate studies, the main goal is to obtain specialized knowledge from a concentrated area of study in one area. We want you to have the development of specialized skills for either a profession or to be able to do advanced research, specifically in STEM areas. This would include active participation in research. When thinking about how to choose a graduate school, some questions to consider would be, what are my academic credentials? What type of degree am I seeking? What are my financial needs? And in what type of academic climate do I wish to study? In thinking about Indiana University, we have 200 plus doctoral, master's, and non-degree graduate programs. For additional information, you can visit graduate.indiana.edu/admissions/programs to find additional information about all of our programming. We currently have 16 degree granting colleges and schools, plus our Hutton Honors College, and a number of our programs are highly ranked both in the nation and in the world, from our sociology doctoral program that's ranked in the top 10 in the College of Science and Mathematics. We also have top 10 ranked programs in our Kelley School of Business and our O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs. Additionally, we have great professional programs with our Maurer School of Law, our School of Medicine, and also our School of Optometry. In thinking about how to apply, you can visit graduate.indiana.edu/admissions/apply. There you'll find that the application fee is $70 for domestic and international students. There are also other costs associated with applying, paying for your standardized exams, as well as your transcripts. Something to note is that for some of our programs, like our Kelley School of Business Master's program, they operate on a different fee schedule when it comes to paying your application fee. So in your application to Indiana University, you're going to have your online application. There are supplemental departmental questions related specifically to the department you're applying to. You will need official transcripts, also scores from your standardized exams. You'll need 1 to 3 letters of recommendation, also your statement of purpose, your CV or resume, and a number of departments also require interviews. Typical deadlines for most doctoral programs, December 1st is the deadline. For a number of our business or MBA programs, they have 4 different deadlines, with the priority deadline being January 5th. And for our law programs, March 1st is the deadline for fall, September 1st for spring. An important thing to note is that departments set their own application deadlines, so you need to visit your prospective program's website to determine which deadline actually applies to you. Some additional resources when thinking about graduate school include our Council of Graduate Schools, gradschools.com, petersons.com, and ets.org to be able to compare different graduate schools. In your timeline for applying as freshmen and sophomores, you really want to participate in summer research programs or internship experiences, start getting to know your professors, network at research conferences, and start doing website searches of graduate programs. In your junior year, you want to start drafting your personal statement, also exploring graduate programs more, and starting to review for standardized exams that you need to take. By the summer of your junior year, you need to have registered for and taken the standardized exams you need, and then you need to start contacting graduate programs. By your senior year in August, you want to have narrowed down your program choices, maybe to 5 to 10 programs. You also want to identify faculty members for letters of recommendation. In September, you really want to start working on your personal statement and sharing it with others. Visit your campus writing center and then talk to your faculty members about writing strong letters of recommendation for you, something that's going to help you stand out as an applicant. In October, you want to revise your personal statement, trying to get it to the best version possible. You want to order your transcripts, and then you want to start looking at application forms and doing some drafts. For example, if you know you have an additional statement to write as an essay with your application, specifically to your department, you want to start working on drafts for that. In November, you want to follow up with those faculty members regarding letters of recommendation, and you want to start submitting completed applications. By December, you should have submitted all of your application forms, and then you should send out thank you notes to faculty members for their recommendations for you, and also to people that help with your personal statement as well. By February and March, you should begin receiving admission letters and also funding offers. And then once you get to April 15th is the national deadline to accept or decline offers of admission or funding for all graduate programs. So at this time, we're going to hear some advice from some of our emissaries for graduate student diversity. And I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves. And we will start with Lauren Harrison, followed by Hamid Nadir, followed by Toby Ojo.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're really happy to have you. My name is Lauren Harrison. I use El Renee in all of my creative professional pursuits. I'm a third-year poet in the Department of English, Creative Writing Department specifically. And I am from Columbus, Ohio originally. I moved to Bloomington, though, from Brooklyn, New York, after I spent a career of about a decade or so working in journalism. So I have had some time off of school and then returned for a second master's degree here at IU.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hamid Nadir. I am a PhD candidate in instructional system technology, minoring in human-computer interaction. As a profession, I was a classroom teacher. So like Lauren, I came to graduate school a little bit late. I am researching problem solving and scaffolding. My other research interests are computational thinking and computer science. I am married and I have 2 little children.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Toby Ojo, and I'm a second-year MBA candidate at the Kelley School of Business. I'm double majoring in corporate innovation and management. And prior to business school, I spent 6.5 years living in Philadelphia, working for the Vanguard Group, most recently in retail asset management as a financial advisor manager. But I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. Pleasure to meet you all.
And I am Dr. Bianca Evans Donaldson. I am Assistant Dean for Diversity and Inclusion in the University Graduate School. So for the first question, could you all just tell us a little about what your approach to the application process was?
Okay, I'll start. I think my approach to the application process was really doing my due diligence of investigating what types of programs were out there and what would be the best fit for me in terms of what I was looking for. As I mentioned earlier, I have my master's degree in journalism from Columbia University, And so I had journalism experience, but I was really interested in translating that into the making of creative work and producing books. And I wanted to look at a program that would give me teaching experience as well as studio experience. So that making, that crafting experience. And not all MFA programs are structured that way. So I really wanted to look at what were the scholarly components of what the program was asking. I think the other thing I thought a lot about when I was considering applying to programs was considering where they were located at. The time I was in Brooklyn, New York, a major metropolitan city. Prior to that, I lived in Chicago. And so I was trying to figure out where could I live and be happy outside of just the actual academic aspect of graduate school. So that also helped me narrow down my approach. I think thirdly, I looked at faculty for working in the Department of English with really accomplished writers. We have one of the top 10 programs in the country. I thought about long-term relationships with the faculty that I would be able to work with that would outlast just the 3 years that I was here at IU. And so that was very important to me. And making spreadsheets, trying to keep up with all the different deadlines and all of the different requirements was also key in my application process.
For me, for the application process, I mainly looked at different schools that serves my interest. So traditionally, I was in education. So I had a teaching degree and I had a teaching license. So I was teaching in a public school, but I wanted to do something else besides teaching. I had a strong interest in technology. So I was looking into schools that has good program that support technology integration in education. And IU came as one of the most renowned in the country. So foremost, that kind of influenced me to apply here. The other process that I considered was because I'm coming after a long break, I wanted to see which school would support diverse candidate, which school would support different aspects of graduate school. So when I was searching different school, IU and IU community seems to be a good fit for my choice. So that's kind of led me to come here.
And for me, it was really just coming to realization that I wanted to go back to school and what would that look like for me. So I knew I wanted to, after I had come to a realization, I knew I wanted to go to business school, and a business school that would help not only help me learn and grow as an individual and a professional, but also would support me after I graduate. And so once I came to that realization, then it was just getting all of my ducks in a row. So that looks like GMAT, so making sure I was able to study for that and take the test and get the score that I wanted. Making a list of schools. So just having that criteria laid out of schools that I thought would fit my personality, fit my background, and fit what I was looking for. But also just looking at the culture too. So culture is a big thing for me, just because academics are one thing, but that's only a part of the experience. The other part are your classmates, it's your professors, it's just the town that you're going to be living in. So I really wanted to make sure I was a good fit for me as well. And then just reaching out to all the individuals who had to write a letter of recommendation for me, making sure I had all my essays, quadruple checked by those people I trusted, just because you just stare at a screen for so long, you kind of get lost in the words, but making sure that was on point. And also networking too. So that was a big thing that I didn't know I would have to do as much, is just talking to as many students as I could at these different schools, as many admissions counselors, but also alums, just to see what their experience post business school was like.
So for the next question, could you all discuss a little about your decisions on funding in the application process? How important is it to be fully funded, or what that looked like for you when you were choosing the schools that you were applying to?
So I can kick us off on this question. So I actually went into the application process funding agnostic. So it's not common to get financial aid for business school. It's kind of a unspoken thing that you got to invest in yourself. So I did just the mental calculations on what the ROI would be. So the lost salary I would have for 2 years plus what I'd be paying towards tuition. And my goal was just to get into the best school that I could, but also ideally a school that fit what I was looking for from just a personal growth standpoint. So I applied to about 8 schools, was accepted to 5, Kelly being one of them. But during that process, I realized there's this organization called the Consortium, and Kelly is one of the founding members of that organization, one of the partners there. And so through the consortium, I was able to get a full ride to Kelly. And after I got into schools, then I started looking at what the financial aid packages looked like, just looking at cost of living. Bloomington has a pretty low cost of living. And looking at what additional benefits I would get on top of getting into that school. And then that's why I chose Kelly, or one of the many reasons I chose Kelly, because it was just like, they were far and above any funding package I would have gotten at any other school. And I was really appreciative of that.
So for me, funding was probably one of the most important factors that led me to come here, because I was working full time and I had to leave the work and come and become a student. I had to think about all the cost, and I was bringing 2 young children with me, so I had to think about family and structure and all those. So funding was probably the main determinant factor. I applied 5 schools and I was accepted in 4 of them. IU was not my first choice, it was my second choice, but IU offered me the funding first before anyone offered me. So that's kind of like, helped me to choose IU. And then I was looking at the community and the school district. So IU has a wonderful school district. So that led me to come to IU.
I think for me, because I'm in a Master's of Fine Arts program, I realized that my advanced degree would not necessarily translate into dollars and cents in the same way that other professional programs are structured. And as such, full funding was key for me. I had some debt from my previous degree, and I did not want to go into any additional debt for time to hone my craft and my art. So funding was a huge consideration. I think one of the things that's important when you're talking about funding is that dollars and cents don't equate to the same thing in every geographic area. And I think that was some part of my consideration. If I had an offer for a funding package, let's just make this up, for $15,000, what does $15,000 look like in Bloomington, Indiana, versus Syracuse, New York, versus Miami, Florida, right? So being aware of what that actually translated to, looking at the rental markets in those areas, looking at other cost of living factors was really key. Making sure that health insurance was included in these packages, and what I would be tasked with for my portion if that was part of the package as well. I think wellness is a real key aspect of graduate school, whether it's mental health or physical health. IU is great in that we have a wonderful massage therapist here. So I frequent visiting our massage therapist on campus pre-COVID. So I think those kinds of things, thinking about your lifestyle is key. I also think with funding, one thing that I learned in the process is if you do have multiple offers and there is a school that you're really interested in, it is important to be transparent with those schools and let them know, B school offered me X amount of dollars, really interested in your school. Can you match that? Is there room for negotiation in my funding package? I wasn't aware that was even an option until I was in the process. And ultimately, I chose IU, although I didn't have the best funding package. I had a really great funding package, but I had another school that offered me more. And I think one element of funding that I'd also bring into consideration is thinking about currency outside of dollars and cents, knowing that maybe a particular place is not offering you, it's offering you $4,000 or $5,000 less. But what are you getting in exchange for that in terms of relationship building, in terms of mentorship, in terms of people who are going to invest in your future after you graduate as an alum? So I think that's also a consideration to think about funding, not just in actual money, we need that to live, but also in relationship as to how that relates to your overall goals and your objectives.
So next, can you all talk a little about how you maintain your personal well-being during the application process? You're applying to a lot of schools, you're finishing out a program, you could be working, you have family life. How do you maintain your personal wellness?
Okay, so I'll hop in on that. I think for me, being really organized helped me just to remain kind of calm and insane. I'm a list person, I'm a spreadsheet person. I think it's really critical that you make sure that you look at what the application guidelines are for each program. I had the location, the dates, application deadline dates, the components of applications, because those are not going to be the same, even if you're applying to some of the same programs. So there may be an extra essay required somewhere versus another place. I think that was really key. I think being in regular correspondence with my recommenders, Dr. Evans showed a great kind of list of kind of planning out your application process. But you don't want to ask someone in August and then finally get back in contact with them the week before the application is due, right? So just being sure that you're in contact with those recommenders. I really tried to make the job of my recommenders easy by providing them with kind of like a bullet point list of for each school, why I was looking at that school, what kind of elements I thought that they could maybe address even in my recommendation letter in terms of why I thought we were a good fit. Being able to give them my CV so they had things to pull from, not having recommenders having to ask me for additional materials. So just trying to kind of create a package for them to make their process easier. And I think in addition to kind of being highly organized, also being communicative, is also to kind of carve out study time, writing, editing time, and social time. Sometimes during these periods of applying for things, we kind of bury our head down in it and we forget that we do need to have that conversation with our tribe, our family and friends. We do need that, at least for me, that bad reality TV sometimes and a pint of Ben and Jerry's, just to chill out while we're going through all of that. And we do also need to build in study time for the GRE, especially as a student like myself who had been 10 years out of grad school, getting back into that frame of mind. So trying to kind of budget your time as well was really key for me to maintain my own sanity during the process.
I wish I have been organized as Lauren, but looking back to the process, like I think I started early because I knew that I was working full time and my time was limited, so I had to start everything earlier. So the GRE, the problem statement later, and then talking to people who would give you glorious recommendation later. So those processes I have started earlier. It took me time to apply all 5 places because every school has some sort of their specific requirements that you have to fulfill. So my advice is always start early. Don't just look at the deadline and think, okay, I will apply maybe a week before the deadline. Try to apply at least a couple of weeks, if not a month ahead of time. So if you have to go back and redo something or go back and get another recommendation later, you can do that. So to keep the sanity, I would say, like, try to maintain your life and work balance, and at the same time, paying attention to those details like your GRE, your cover letter, your recommendation letter, and also the application. So if you can do all those, you can kill all those ducks in a row, then I think you can feel better that like you have done your work and you have done everything that you needed to do. And rest of it is gonna just follow along.
And I'll echo the statements from my colleagues before. Yeah, organization is key because you're going to have a lot of different variables moving at different paces. So you need to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row. But I also just think knowing how you work best, right? Like no one can tell you how you get things done. You just have to get it done. So just figuring out what that is for you and just executing on that and holding yourself accountable, but also giving yourself some grace because you're going to be balancing a lot of things. You might be balancing family, your full-time job, studying, applying, trying to get sleep, eating well, etc. So one analogy that I thought that was pretty good that I heard is that like we're always juggling these different balls and we always assume that they're glass balls and we can't drop anything, but that's actually not true. Some of them are rubber balls. So it's okay to let something slide in order to get to that end goal because it's not going to last forever. The application process does end and then ideally you get into the school that you're meant to go to, but just kind of giving yourself a little bit of flexibility. But I think just in terms of personal well-being, just trying to get as much sleep as you can, just because like it's very important and that's what's going to keep you going. And just giving yourself those study breaks, right? Like going out to a movie, like whatever you like to do that, right? Like build that into your process because you can't just keep working because you're going to end up burning yourself out before you even get to school. And there's time for burnout later, trust me, when you start your program. But just giving yourself like a little bit of wiggle room just to, again, touch base with your tribe, as Lauren said.
Can you all talk a little about life in Bloomington or why you decided to come to Bloomington among your other choices?
So I could kick us off here. So I decided to come to Bloomington, and I'll be surprised. I'll let you know. I was surprised I end up in Bloomington, to be honest, because I'm from Chicago, and I don't like Chicago is kind of like a city state. You don't really think much about anything outside the Midwest but Chicago. So I had friends who went to IU, but I'm like, I don't know if I saw myself in a college town. But when I visited, I was just very impressed with all that Bloomington had to offer. Like it's just a very tight knit feel, but you get the benefit of that, but also the large college campus that you can take advantage of. And there's like always things to do. There's different coffee shops. Like if you like nature, there's trails. If you want to just go for a drive, you can drive for hours and just see just beautiful landscapes. And there's always something to do. Like that's the nice thing about Indiana University. It's a big university, so there's always something to do if you want to do it. But if you don't, you can always just relax here as well. And so I've really enjoyed my time here, especially during COVID, where in the larger cities, I just have a lot of friends and family who just felt like that pressure and like that anxiety because like they're so boxed in, on top of each other. Like you don't get that in Bloomington, right? You have ample space to walk around and be like kind of like just relax and say hello to people from 6 feet away and still get that connection that way. So yeah, Bloomington, I would say, will surprise you if you haven't visited. Like it's been great so far.
So I will echo that. I am from Kansas, so any place outside Kansas, I think, would have been interesting. So one of the reasons that I chose Bloomington, or like we choose IU, was the scenic landscape of Bloomington. I like to travel, so and the Bloomington, the southern Indiana is particularly beautiful. Um, and also it close to a couple of major cities, like you can go to Louisville, Kentucky, you can go to Indianapolis or Chicago or Nashville, within few hours. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason was the school district, because my oldest one was close to 5. So we are thinking like a school district, which would be important for us. And Bloomington has wonderful school districts. So that's kind of helped us to choose Bloomington. And overall life in Bloomington, as my colleague just said, that there is so much things to do. So you can never get bored. And if you get bored, you can go to nearby big cities. So.
I'll say that was one of the biggest questions that I had, because I had lived in big cities for my entire adulthood. And even Columbus, my hometown, Ohio, is considered a pretty large city, at least mid range, I guess. So I had never lived in a college town, really, with the exclusion of undergrad. I attended a small private school in Virginia. So that was kind of a shocker to me at that time. And I wasn't sure how I would feel about being in a college town in my 30s. I just had this vision that like there would just be like teenagers everywhere and I would be like the grandma in town. That was what my association was with a college town. But surprisingly, I think there are a lot of people who come back to school at different phases of their lives for different reasons. I've been able to meet a lot of artists. I was surprised that Bloomington had people who were visual artists and filmmakers and performing artists. There are dancers here. There's a rich fine arts program here. I was really surprised to see what was available just on IU's own campus. Let alone some of the theater and smaller music venues around town. And that really appealed to me as an arts person. I wanted to be around other people who were thinking critically about the world and making something out of it. I think the other thing I was really concerned about, I cook a lot, I bake a lot, but I like Brooklyn and brunch just like go together. And I was like, where's my brunch spot gonna be in Bloomington? Luckily I found it. You can email me later. I don't want to put it on blast and then have y'all blowing up all the prices. But I found a brunch spot. I found my bakery. Like doing those kinds of things for me is kind of a ritual in being in a new city. Like where's my cleaning spot? Where's my the place I could go walking that can make me clear my head. And I found all of those in Bloomington. I will say though, aside from things to do, people are what make a community, right? And so thinking about ways in which you can go even outside your discipline. We have lots of cultural houses, like the Neil Marshall Center and La Casa for Latinx folks, Asian American Center. So there are lots of ways that you can engage with finding people, and people also bring a sense of home to a community. Having that kind of common language or that common recipe or that film reference or those things can also make your life more enriching outside of your department. So that was really key for me in Bloomington, not just the places to go, but finding like-minded people that I could also go to those places with.
So for the final question, could you all just give one or two pieces of advice on successfully applying to Indiana University? What are one or two tips that you all have?
So I guess I could kick us off again. So in terms of my two tips, I would say in this process, it's okay to be selfish, right? Like you're dedicating a lot of time to this application process. You're going to dedicate even more time to whatever school you choose to go to. So really just take a chance to have some introspection and figure out like what you want out of this and what you're able to offer, which leads to my next point of advice is just like know what your story is, because that's what's going to get you into Indiana University, right? Like you're going to be applying, like I'm assuming, to very competitive programs here. And so you're applying to a lot of people who might have similar credentials to you, but not everyone is the same. And so if you feel like you're going to just write what you think they want to see, then you're not going to be successful, right? Because they're going to see, hundreds of the same applications. So really figure out like what makes you unique and what is your story and like what you really want to not only get out of the program, but what you're going to give to the program too. Because I've talked to my colleagues before, and we're all in different programs, but the commonality between all of our programs is that it's very collaborative, right? Like it's a community. You're going to be giving back constantly in some form or another. So like they want to see that in you that you're able to not only take, but also to give. So just figure out what that is for you. And then, best of luck. Happy to have you if you come.
So to piggyback what my colleague just said, I would say be true to yourself, your cover letter or a statement. Be truthful, paint the picture who you are. Don't try to be someone you are not, because I think the faculty really go through your problem statement and really judge you as the person you are and what you're bringing to the program. So that would be my first advice, first and foremost. My second advice would be get really good recommendation letter. I did not have really high GRE score because I was working full time and trying to prepare the GRE after a long time. So I admit I didn't have really outstanding score, but what helped me was those recommendation letter and my cover letter. So I believe those two, like if you can pay a lot of attention to those two, then you have a better chance of getting into a good program.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what was said here. I think the personal statement, thinking about that as a way that people are really going to get an opportunity to see who you are. And keep in mind, there are hundreds of people applying for these programs. And so I always, as a journalist, I was trained to kind of have the most important, impactful information at the top. And so I really tried to think about, okay, what would my news hook for myself be? If someone is reading hundreds of these, how can I make them want to read the next sentence after the first paragraph, right? And so I think that thinking about like a hook, for the personal statement was really kind of key for me, because I'm also applying to a program for writers. So I'm expecting that they'll be encountering good writing, right? I think the other element about the personal or about the recommendation letter rather, is really key. Thinking about people who know you, know the way you work, and know your work ethic. I think sometimes for graduate programs, particularly competitive programs, people think, oh, I need to get the name. I need to get someone that they'll see and they'll say, oh, wow, you know this person. That's so great. But if they haven't worked with you in kind of an intimate, collaborative way, they won't be able to really speak to the things that will help you shine. So I think really thinking about, I approached my recommenders, because I'd been out of school so long, as having a scholar who could speak to my scholarly, experience, having an editor who could speak to me on an editing team, what it's like to work in a journalism in a newsroom. And then also thinking about having an actual arts administrator, someone that I worked with outside of school capacity who could also speak to me in that environment. So kind of seeing the kind of keynotes, whether it was teaching, scholarly writing, collaborative work, where they had kind of a full picture because of the recommenders that I chose for different aspects of my my career and my life. So I think that is also really, really key.
You all have provided some excellent advice, definitely for applying to Indiana University. So this concludes our presentation. We have some contact information up. If you have additional questions for our emissaries, you can send us an email at emissary@indiana.edu. You can also reach out to us on our social media pages. And for additional information about Indiana University, it's graduate.indiana.edu. Thank you all for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you all. Best of luck.
Yes, good luck.